And as you think about where you are now, perhaps you've noticed that what seems like a lack of results, it's really just a moment before transformation begins. Because isn't it fascinating how often the most profound changes occur just when we least expect them? It's like a seed, isn't it? Buried deep beneath the soil. No light, no visible sign of growth. And yet, deep within, life is bursting forth, shifting, moving, preparing to break through. And you might already be wondering, what if this is just that moment? The one where all the unseen efforts align, just below the surface, waiting to reveal something extraordinary. And as you consider that, you might also begin to realize that feeling bored, tired, or even upset, it isn't an endpoint. No, it's a signal, a reminder that your mind, your body, your very essence, knows there's something more waiting for you. And isn't it interesting how, when you change the way you look at something, the very thing you look at begins to change? Because the truth is, the idea of no results, that's just a perception, isn't it? A frame. And when you shift that frame, suddenly you notice that what was already there, subtle changes, micro shifts, tiny ripples, like the first warm breeze before spring arrives. And you've experienced that before, haven't you? That moment when everything seems still, and then all at once the pieces clicked into place. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if the feeling of stuckness, it's simply the mind sharpening itself, preparing for the breakthrough that's already on its way? Like an archer pulling back the bowstring. The further it's drawn back, the greater the power when it's released. So as you reflect right now, you might start to notice how deeply you've already committed to your growth. Because the very fact that you're here, hearing this, listening, learning, proves you're someone who doesn't quit. And isn't that the kind of person who always finds their way through? And while you may not have seen the results that you expected yet, haven't you already learned so much? Skills, insight, resilience. And isn't it true? Sometimes the process is more important than the results. Because the person that you're becoming through this journey is far more powerful than any single milestone. And as you begin to imagine stepping into that version of yourself who already knows this, you might notice how easily your unconscious mind begins to absorb these results, naturally, effortlessly. And you know, don't you? The results, they aren't always linear. Sometimes the most profound transformations come in bursts, like how water can trickle, and then suddenly the dam breaks and the river flows. And what if this is the moment, the one just before the dam bursts? And is it comforting to realize that every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to what you're seeking? And even those feelings of doubt or frustration, aren't they just a sign that you care deeply, that you're invested, that you're willing to feel your way forward, even when it's uncomfortable? And doesn't that mean you're stronger than you think? Because when you think about it, the people who achieve the most remarkable transformations, they're often the ones who kept going, even when it felt like nothing was happening. And doesn't that make you wonder what kind of transformation is waiting for you just around the corner? You can already feel it, can't you? That shift, that spark, that tiny flicker of hope, reigniting, spreading, growing. As your mind realizes there's always more happening beneath the surface than you can see. And as that thought settles in, you might begin to notice how effortlessly your unconscious mind is already weaving these ideas into your everyday experience. Because deep down, you already know. Every moment of frustration is just another opportunity to grow stronger. That every step forward, even the smallest, it's proof of your resilience. And the change you're seeking is already unfolding right now, in ways you're only just beginning to discover. And it's interesting to think about how much is possible for you now. Because when you fully realize this is part of the process, you can begin to trust it, can't you? Trust yourself, Trust the journey. Trust that even when you can't see it, the seed is still growing. And it makes you curious, doesn't it? To think about what's next. To wonder what's surprising, exciting, and what can show up next when you least expect it. Because as you already have begun to realize, the transformation, it isn't coming, it's already here. And isn't it interesting how the mind works? Because while the conscious mind might focus on what's not happening, the unconscious mind, quietly, skillfully, is always working behind the scenes, weaving together insights, connections and possibilities. And perhaps you're beginning to notice now how easily your unconscious mind can make these adjustments, naturally, effortlessly, because it's what your mind already knows how to do. You've probably experienced this before, haven't you? Those times when you felt stuck, lost, unsure, and yet somehow something shifted, something clicked, and looking back it seems so obvious, almost inevitable. And it's funny, isn't it, how those moments, they always seemed to come just when you needed them the most. Because after all, the unconscious mind is always listening, always learning, always ready to surprise you with what it already knows. And as you think about that, you might find yourself wondering, what if the very feeling of being stuck is actually a sign that something new is about to emerge? Because isn't it true? In every moment of stillness, there's a deeper movement happening, like the way the earth shifts beneath the surface before a volcano erupts, or the way the tide pulls back just before a powerful wave rolls in. And as you think about that now, perhaps you can begin to imagine what it would feel like to trust this process completely, to trust yourself completely. Because as you're already realizing, aren't you, the very act of continuing forward, even when it feels hard, it's proof that you're exactly the kind of person who always finds a way. Isn't that interesting? How every step you take, no matter how small, creates momentum, even when you can't see it, even when you can't feel it. Because the mind is like that, isn't it? Always building, always connecting, always preparing you for the next breakthrough. And the truth is, those feelings, boredom, tiredness, even frustration, they're not obstacles, they're signals. Signals that your mind, your body, your very being is ready for something more. And as you think about that now, you might begin to realize the very fact that you're here, listening to this, exploring this, it means you've already started to shift. Because the kind of person who takes the time to learn, to grow, to question their beliefs, is the kind of person who's destined to succeed. You've probably noticed, haven't you, how the smallest shifts in perspective, they can create the biggest changes. Like looking at a puzzle from a new angle, and suddenly the missing piece is obvious. And as you think about that now, you might begin to notice how your mind is already finding those missing pieces for you. And doesn't that make you curious? Curious about what is possible now. Curious about how quickly these changes will begin to show up in your life. Because as you've already started to realize, haven't you, every time you feel stuck, it's just your mind recalibrating, adjusting, preparing you for the next leap forward. And isn't it exciting to think that every challenge, every frustration, is simply another step in the process? Because the process works. It always works. And as you imagine that now, imagine yourself 6 months from now, looking back on this moment. And as you do, notice how clear it all seems. How every step, every struggle was necessary to bring you to where you are now. And as you imagine that future version of yourself, can't you already feel their confidence, their certainty, that deep knowing that everything unfolded exactly as it was meant to? And isn't it fascinating how the mind can take these ideas, these beliefs, and make them your reality? Because deep down you already know that feeling stuck is never permanent. That every small effort, it builds momentum. That change is always happening, even when you can't see it. and that you're already moving closer to the results that you want, simply by being here, now. As you think about that now, you might notice how effortlessly your unconscious mind can take these results and weave them into the fabric of your daily life. Because it's natural, isn't it, for your unconscious mind to make these shifts effortlessly, easily, automatically. And perhaps you're beginning to notice now how much lighter it feels to let go of those old beliefs. Because they were never really yours, were they? They were just thoughts, temporary passings. And as you release them now, you create space for something new, something better, something that's already taking root deep within you. And doesn't that make you excited to think about what's coming next? Because as you've already realized, haven't you, the transformation has already begun. And isn't it interesting how some of the most profound realizations, they seem to emerge when you're not even looking for them, like the way the stars quietly fill the sky while your attention is elsewhere, or the way sunrise slowly paints the horizon before you even realize it's begun. Because the unconscious mind, your unconscious mind, is always moving forward, always searching, sorting and aligning, piece by piece, to create exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. And perhaps you've already started to notice, haven't you, how the simple act of continuing, of taking one step and then another, even when it feels like nothing's changing, actually sets the stage for the most extraordinary breakthroughs. Because think about it now. What if every single challenge you faced, every single feeling of frustration, has been quietly preparing you, like pressure forming a diamond, or the way a caterpillar must completely transform itself to become a butterfly? And as you think about that, you might begin to wonder, what kind of transformation is already underway within you? What kind of momentum has already been building, even when it felt like nothing was moving? Because you know, don't you, that growth often happens beneath the surface, like roots stretching deeper into the soil, quietly building a foundation that will one day support something magnificent. And as you consider that now, you might begin to realize how much you've already grown, how much strength, resilience and determination you've already cultivated. And isn't it fascinating to think about how much further you'll go when you let yourself fully trust this process? Because here's the thing, the process always works. Even when it feels slow, even when it feels hard, even when it feels like nothing's happening, the process is always working. Because you're always growing. As you reflect on that now, you might begin to notice every moment of frustration is simply another opportunity for growth. That every small effort creates ripples that expand far beyond what you can see. And that every step you take brings you closer to the person you're becoming. And isn't it curious how the mind can begin to see things differently, just by shifting focus, like the way a kaleidoscope creates endless patterns, simply by turning it slightly. And as you think about that now, you might begin to notice how easily your perspective can shift, naturally, effortlessly. Because the truth is, there's always movement, always change, always progress, even when it feels like nothing's happening. There's a deeper momentum at work. And as you think about that, you might begin to wonder, what kind of possibilities are opening up for you right now? And as you imagine that now, picture yourself 6 months from now, looking back on this very moment, and notice how everything makes sense, how every step, every challenge, every moment of doubt was necessary to bring you to where you are now. And isn't it exciting to think about the person you're becoming, the confidence, the clarity, the energy that's already beginning to take shape within you? Because you know, don't you, the transformation, it isn't coming, it's already happening right now. And as you let that thought settle in, you might begin to notice how easy it is to let go of those old beliefs. The ones that said change was slow or hard or impossible. Because those beliefs, they were never really yours, were they? They were just borrowed, temporary, and now it's time to release them. Because as you let them go, you create space for new beliefs, empowering beliefs, beliefs that align you with who you truly are and who you're becoming. And as those new beliefs begin to take root, deep within your unconscious mind, you might find yourself wondering, what would it feel like to fully embrace this process, to trust it completely? And as you imagine that now, notice how good it feels to know. Every step you take is moving you forward. Every small effort builds momentum. So every moment of frustration is just another step towards something greater. And doesn't that make you curious? Curious about what's possible now. Curious about how quickly these changes will begin to show up in your life. Because as you've already realized, haven't you? The person you're becoming, the person you already are, it's someone who always finds a way. Because when you think about it, isn't it true? You've overcome so much already. You've faced challenges before, and every single time you've found a way through. And as you think about that now, notice how easy it is to trust yourself, to trust your resilience, to trust no matter what happens. You always find your way. And as you reflect on that now, you might begin to notice how effortlessly your unconscious mind is already making these shifts. Because it's what your mind does best, isn't it? Learning, growing, adapting, naturally, effortlessly. And perhaps you've noticed how much lighter it feels to let go of the need for immediate results. Because the truth is, the results are inevitable. And isn't it exciting to think about how they'll show up when you least expect them? Because as you have already realized, haven't you? The transformation, it isn't coming, it's already here. And as that thought settles in, you might begin to notice how much more confident, more focused, more energized you feel. Because deep down, you already know. Every step is moving you forward. Every effort is building momentum. And that the change that you're seeking is already unfolding right now. And as you think about that now, you might begin to wonder, what kind of extraordinary possibilities are showing up for you right now? Because as you've already begun to realize, haven't you, the best is yet to come.